Okay, so these orthotics and insoles right here are by far the best that I have ever tried for shock absorption and impact protection. Really no others have come anywhere close. This video is not sponsored either, but none have come close. The thing is though, is to get this level of performance for shock absorption and impact protection, you have to give up some other things. There are some big trade-offs. Now, for some people, those trade-offs that you get for this are a feature, not a bug. No big deal. For other people, they are complete deal breakers. So let's see which side of the line you fall on and if all that shock absorption, all that impact protection really means anything to you. Let's get into it. Now, the orthotics and insoles I'm talking about are the Remind brand of orthotics and insoles. And thanks to Remind for getting me a pair of these to check out. However, this video is by no means sponsored, which you will find out very soon. And as always, all opinions, good, bad, and different, are all my own. And these are all foam or insoles. They have about 5 different variations of them, and I will touch on each in this video and kind of give you the differences of them, but they all follow the same ethos. It's moldable foam that customizes to your foot while you use them for maximum shock absorption. That's kind of the ethos of all of them. And then each one of them, they have some that are like 4.5 millimeters, some that are 5.5 millimeters thick. So they have different thicknesses, actually a lot of options. And I will make sure I put all those options in the video. That way, if you're really interested in the nitty gritty of them, you can take a look at that and see. But I do kind of want to give an overview of the entire brand and kind of what makes these insoles and orthotics, these insoles and the orthotics. You can see some of them have 4 layers of distinct foam that all do different things and all have some interesting use cases for them. So first, let me tell you what these things are and what they're made of, and then we'll get into if they're right for you or not. Like I said, all of the Remind insoles, all the way from the Reedies, which are a little bit more flat, more insole replacement types, all the way up to the Medic, which is like a legit huge arched orthotic, they're all foamers. Now, they also all are customizable, or what they call custom molding, which means you put your foot in them, you put them in a shoe, you walk around in them, and the pressure and heat from your foot molds them to your foot. Now, they do have a heat moldable one where you actually stick it in a little, oven or whatever, and then it molds. I don't love heat moldable ones like that, so I'm not gonna get into that, but the rest of them just mold around your foot as you walk. Now, there's some other companies that'll do that too. I found that the Reminds are just way more efficient at doing this. They're much lighter, more low profile, because some of the other ones you'll see they're super thick. They take up so much room in the shoe. And the reason that I think these are so much better than a lot of those other products is the fact that even the Reedies here, the really small ones, which are coincidentally my favorite ones, they mold incredibly well because the foam is so dense that even these really low profile, really lightweight ones will mold around your foot pretty quickly, and they do have some pretty decent memory to them. Now, it depends on which level of Remind you get in terms of how many layers of foam you get. They go all the way from just 2 layers of foam, which basically look like 2 layers of open cell foam, all the way to 4 layers of foam combining open and closed cell moldable foams. So it really just depends how crazy you want to get. Now, the one thing I have noticed is any of the orthotics that have this darker blue, this royal blue layer on the bottom, this will actually stick to the shoe. So it actually prevents slippage of these as well. That gripping action was to a much lesser extent on the Reedy, which like I said is more that insole replacement. But on the Destin, the Medic, and the Cush, they all stuck to the footbed really, really well. Did not want to move anywhere. So that was actually a nice little kind of side benefit of having that go. I mean, it looks like urethane foam on the bottom. Now, the thing is you look at, let's just look at the Cush and the Medics here. Now, as you can see, these arches on them are enormous. The thing is, on the Medic, this is the biggest arch I have tested yet on a shoe. It spans 10.5 centimeters in length and 3.3 centimeters in height for a men's 11 to 11.5. That's enormous. The Cush actually has an even longer arch at 11 centimeters, but it's actually a little bit smaller in terms of height. Now the thing is, you look at the tensiometer and you can kind of push them down pretty easily, even on the Medic, which is 4 layers of foam and pretty dense foam at that. It only takes 50 newtons to push it down. That's versus like 80 newtons into the hundreds for more like structural orthotics, right, with plastic or polypropylene. So it still doesn't take much. The thing is though, is I've been testing this exact pair of Cushes and Medics for a while, and except for the place where I was just putting that tensiometer 1,000 times, they just return to normal so easily, which is really incredible. in terms of how resilient that foam is. Now, of course, it is going to break down. All these foamers break down, but the durability of that foam is really, really incredible. And so of course, as you go down the line into the Destin and into the Reedy, which are much smaller arches and not as much stout foam in there, obviously it doesn't take much more than 30 some newtons to push that down. I think it was with 37.7 newtons to get this arch to completely collapse. So like I said, these are much more insole replacements versus structural arch support. And even with this just super thick layer here, what looks like closed cell foam, like I said, it is still just foam, it's not plastic. And so like I said in the beginning of the video though, that tensiometer reading for most people is a feature, not a bug, because the orthotic has to be able to depress, it has to be able to mold around your foot. So obviously the arch has to be able to contour. And so in some of these though, in some of these brands, you'll see it contours and it just stays flat. And so it just gives you zero support over a very quick amount of time. Whereas in these ones, it comes right back. And so, like I said, to me, this is more of a feature, not a bug, but the resilience of it and where it comes back to after the tensiometer, to me, is the real feature of these, not just the tensiometer readings. Now, I thought the most interesting thing is, and you see this everywhere with insoles, is people bouncing stuff off them. People bouncing bowling balls off them, like me, I bounce the ball bearing off of them. And there is a distinct difference between all these models you probably need to know about. Now, number one, on the Cush, these only got 5 centimeters of bounce height. Like it is, the shock absorption is crazy. All that energy just gets dissipated into heat through all that foam. Now the Medic's got 7 centimeters, and I thought that was interesting because I think it has a little bit more EVA or more closed cell foam, whatever they're calling it. They don't really say exactly what their foam compounds are. I think that it has more of that. It has a little bit more bounce, not much. But as you go into the Destin and the Reedy, now these get 9 centimeters on the Destin and 11 centimeters of bounce height in the Reedy. So it just shows you the more layers that they give you in the orthotic, the more there is to dissipate that shock. So the more shock absorption you want, you're gonna wanna get the thicker and thicker insole. But the real question is, what do all those numbers, all those stats mean? Yes, it is great that when you put any of these on, they are going to reduce so much of the shock going up your leg. So if you're doing something like skiing, snowboarding, skateboarding, jumping, really anything on a hard surface, we're just coming down, 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 they say they dissipate about 90% of the shock going up your leg. I believe it. I mean, these things are incredibly absorptive, and this foam is incredibly resilient, so it's going to absorb shock over time, not just for a little bit of time and they bottom out. And so, yes, that is great, but what do they not do because of that? Well, number one, they don't really provide a lot of structural arch support. And so if you're somebody that is hypermobile, has more of a flattening type foot, or uses an orthotic to legitimately hold your arch up, right? Let's say you have lax ligaments, hereditary hypermobility syndromes, things like that. Well, yes, these will give you a little bit of a cradle, but they will just basically mold to whatever you give them, right? Versus a functional orthotic, which will actually exert some force back on you. The force these exert back is just really nothing. They're just taking everything you give them, versus something that's structural is actually going to act as a structure, right? As a scaffolding underneath of your foot. And so with that, you get a little bit more performance out of the orthotic, a little bit more pop, a little bit more bounce out of the orthotic, because when you're coming down, right, it can exert more of a force back on your foot, back on your arch. So, there's no secret as to why someone like me really likes these, is because I have a rigid high arched foot. And someone that has a rigid high arched foot, it doesn't matter if the orthotic allows a little bit of collapsing, if it allows a little bit of flexibility, because I don't have any, right? All I'm looking for is absorption, right? My foot is, I guess you could say it's strong enough, but it's got enough tension in it, I should say, right? Those ligaments are holding my joints up. I've got this bowstringing already. I don't need an orthotic to do it for me. I need more shock absorption. And so someone like me is gonna really like an orthotic like this, because it's just gonna take all of that shock that I give it, dissipate it, my foot can kind of do the rest, right? Like I've got that bowstringing, my plantar fascia is as tight as it gets, my plantar foot muscles are as taut as they get. I just don't need that performance out of the orthotic. And so I would say if you're somebody that is hypermobile, someone that has flat foot or needs that structural support, even the Medic, which has, a little bit more stiffer arch, it just might not be for you. That hypermobility just might push right through it, and these just might not give you enough torsional control, right? Torsional control in your leg and your foot to do much. But if you're someone that has a medium arch, a really high arch, or someone that's a little bit, the arch is a little bit stiffer, and you just want something to dissipate shock going up your leg, you don't really want or need that performance or that energy return, then these are gonna be really outstanding. The other consideration you have to give to these orthotics versus more structural orthotics is what kind of midsole do you have? Do you have a midsole that has a giant carbon fiber plate in it, right, that's already pretty stiff, and you just need something to, to kind of dissipate the shock that carbon fiber plate is introducing to your leg? Well then, for something like that, these are absolutely ideal. Versus a shoe that has nothing in the midsole and can just, kind of collapse a little bit, then you're gonna want something with maybe a little bit more structural support if you're someone that's going like running for time, if you're someone that's playing tennis a lot and kind of needs more of that support to help the shoe out. Now, if you're someone that's just walking or using these as a casual shoe, then once again, it's just dealer's choice. What do you like more? I've actually had these ones in my work shoes, and like I said, I've just had the Reedy in mine, and I've loved them because all I'm doing is sitting and standing all day. I'm not really doing anything too crazy, right? I don't need to sprint from room to room unless I get really behind. But for me, even though both of these, this shoe, the Structure Plus, and this insole are pretty plush, kind of more comfortable riding type products, I had no problem with that just because I like the feeling of soft cush under my foot because of the high arch. Somebody with a flatter foot, like I said, or hypermobile flat foot, is going to probably want something which is a little bit more structure. So you got to figure, am I using some crazy carbon fiber plated basketball shoe or super shoe running shoe? Am I using something that is maybe a lot more flexible and I'm using my orthotic to make up for that a little bit in the shoe? That's another reason why you may or may not like these. But these two main different types of orthotics, the more structural functional ones or the more accommodative moldable ones, really come down to two camps. Are you someone that really doesn't like the feeling of, some people will say, you know what, I run in a max cushion shoe and it feels like I'm walking or running in sand. It feels like I'm just trying to push through quicksand. Then this might not be a great product for you. Versus if you're someone that loves a max cushion shoe and says, oh, I just love the feeling when I come down there and it doesn't feel like I'm hitting something super hard or there's a rock under my shoe, and you're gonna love them. If you're someone that says, oh, I just love that feeling of kind of bounce and resiliency that my orthotics give me, you're gonna be someone that's gonna like a more functional structural orthotic. Versus if you're someone that says, oh my God, my doctor put these orthotics in my shoe and it just feels like there's a hot poker under my foot. And maybe these types of structural functional orthotics are not gonna be right for you. A more shock absorbing moldable one is going to be right for you. And so, it's interesting. This is not a new concept, right? This has been around in diabetic footwear forever, right? We've been prescribing these to diabetics forever in different forms. It's just that it seems like Remind with these has really found a way to keep them resilient and keep up the shock absorption and the comfort. I will say, if you're gonna wear the Medic or the Cush or even the Destin for a while, this royal blue foam down here, it takes a minute to break in terms of your heel. So if you're wearing them thinking like, oh, this is gonna solve my heel pain right away, to me, it needs broken in. You might wanna wear something with a hole in the heel first, like a power step bridge, things like that. Like a move or things like that, just with a little bit more forgiveness in the heel. I found that the Reedy was okay for that right off the jump though. So just know it is gonna be a little stiff under the heel at first until that foam starts to mold to you and starts to break in a little bit, and then it gets a lot more accommodating. So just a little bit of word to the wise there. So, but like I said, in terms of the comfort, moldability, resilience, and shock absorption, 100,000%. These are definitely my number one favorites right now. It's just, are they my number one favorite orthotics all around? No, they're just a really great tool for people that want what they have to offer. And for what they have to offer, yeah, they're the best. So love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you want to see another orthotic that honestly does offer a ton of shock absorption, but with a little bit more of a functional rigid shell, or I should say semi-rigid or semi-flexible shell, make sure you check out the Tread Labs orthotics right here. I'll see you in the next video.